Come on in. Welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're talking about Survivor players who won immunity but were still voted out that round. It's the one guarantee in Survivor that if you've got that necklace around your neck, if your tribe has immunity, you cannot be voted out. Allegedly. Somehow, six players throughout Survivor history have managed to do just that. Gain immunity, yet still have their torch snuffed later that night. How? That's what we're gonna find out today as we go chronologically through Survivor history, and trust me when I say that these six players made some of the literal dumbest moves of all time, but also represent some of the most twist-screwed players ever. Finally, we won't be including players who won immunity but were then medevaced or quit. Only players who actually had their torch snuffed at Tribal Council. So put on your pretty necklace and do not take it off under any circumstances as we talk about Survivor players who went home despite winning immunity. The first player in Survivor history to leave the game after winning immunity is Liliana in Survivor Fiji. This one requires some table setting. Fiji's main twist was a misguided haves versus haves not theme, where one tribe lived in even more squalor than usual, and the other got to live in the lap of luxury, camp with amenities like a bed, a couch, a toilet, heck, even cutlery. The theme asked the question, will the rich get richer, or will the poor rise up and crush their bourgeois oppressors? That was the theme of the season. Well, I don't know what they expected, but I've been around long enough to know the cruel boot of capital always wins. That's what kept happening in Fiji, as the Moto tribe, the rich tribe, ultimately won 11 out of 12 pre-merge challenges. After Moto won immunity for the fourth straight time, they were given a decision to make. They can keep their immunity, but they would all have to swap to the Ravu camp, giving up all their comfort and amenities in exchange for safety. Incredibly, Moto decided to keep their camp and vote out one of their own. So how did it land on Liliana? Well, she thought she was in the main alliance on this tribe, and as we saw it, Lisi iced her out of the alliance because of her flirty nature and, well, I'll just let Lisi handle this one.
I see what she's doing.
I know in her little diabolical Mexican mind, she's trying to come up with something, you know?
Liliana's elimination can largely be chalked up to unseen politics. She was the head of a giant Day 1 alliance that didn't make air and was far more threatening and influential a player than her initial 3-episode stint of complete invisibility would have you believe. So they cut her loose. In hindsight, probably should have gone for that cave. The next player to leave the game after winning immunity is by far our most famous, Eric in Survivor Micronesia. Eric was not the first person to give up individual immunity. That was Jenna in Survivor Amazon. But Eric was the first person to give up individual immunity to the Black Widow Brigade, an all-women's alliance who gleefully and openly picked off all the men. The same alliance who just the round prior were planning to unanimously vote Eric out until he won immunity. The same alliance pantomiming flossing with his jugular and picking their teeth with his bones. Oh, I'm sure this'll all work out. Eric was going home at the final 5 of Micronesia until he won individual immunity, again throwing a wrench in the plans of the Black Widows. Usually when someone wins immunity, people just change their target, but back at camp, the women discuss if there's any way they can trick Eric into giving up immunity, and Cirie proposes an absurd scheme. The plan? Natalie goes to Eric and says that he needs redemption in the eyes of the jury. So if he gives immunity to her, she and Cirie will join him in blindsiding Amanda. Well, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Who would fall for that?
I want to give individual immunity to Natalie.
Dear God, keep this man away from crypto investments and timeshares. From this point on, the show doesn't even hide that Eric's going home, and they show all 4 women's votes for him before he is sent out the door, his immunity necklace still around Natalie's neck. Eric's long been called the dumbest survivor ever for this move, a title lovingly transferred to him by James, and he was even trotted out alongside James at the Ghost Island reunion a decade later as the perennial example of horrible survivor play.
There's so much to this, like with these mistakes, they show you who you are as a human. Like these human moments show up because everybody makes mistakes. And over time, I've had to, kind of work through all of that. If you don't laugh, you're gonna cry.
Well, at least he's got a sense of humor about it. This has long been called the worst survivor move of all time, and it's up there. But there's one we'll get to soon that I actually think is even worse. The next survivor player who gave up immunity and still went home is Brandon Hance in Survivor South Pacific. Brandon was part of the Family, the weird religious cult alliance on Upolu, and he made the final 5 with them. Unbeknownst to Brandon, he was the target this round, until he unexpectedly won immunity. Instead, in the post-challenge chaos, the target shifts to our favorite baseball, Albert. Albert gets caught in a mountain of schemes and lies, and he seems all but toast. But Brandon was young, he was struggling, and he was emotional. And after Albert gives him a sob story and some puppy dog eyes, Brandon decides he's voting Sophie instead of Albert, and even offers Albert his immunity necklace should he need it. Brandon tells Coach this plan, and Coach, who's been manipulating Brandon all game but now really wants him out, responds that he's gotta confer with God on this one. What didn't really come across in the South Pacific edit was how big a jury threat Brandon was. This is the only time a Hance has been a legitimate endgame jury threat, and Brandon probably shuts out any other endgamer sans Aussie. With that in mind, Coach prays on this and talks to God, who apparently told him that fucking over Brandon is his will. Thy will be done. At Tribal Council, Brandon gives Albert his immunity necklace under the belief that Coach and Albert will join him in voting Sophie. But that was not the plan, and Coach joins Sophie and Rick in voting for Brandon. This is one of the dirtiest moves of all time, in my opinion. I know all's fair in Survivor, but yeesh. As for that weasel Albert, he took the weaseliest way out possible by voting for Sophie, fully knowing Brandon was leaving in a Weasley attempt to curry jury favor with Brandon, which did not work.
Just really quick question. Did you know I was going home?
Let me tell you right now.
Did you know I was going home?
I'm going to tell you.
Did you know I was going home? Yes or no?
This is the answer to that question.
Yes or no?
I was told.
Yes or no?
I did not know that you were going home.
Okay, that's it. That's all I need to know.
Can
You
I
lied.
tell you one? Brandon, can I just...
Thank you, guys.
The next player to be voted out despite winning immunity came the very next season. Bill in Survivor One World. This is, for my money, the worst move of all time. Whereas the Moto tribe had something to gain by forfeiting immunity, Monono quite literally got nothing for giving up their tribal immunity except a ticket to Tribal Council. The Monono tribe, the all-male tribe on this gender-divided season, had a lot of baggage. They were a tribe divided, and at the center of the tribe and the drama was Colton, a petty tyrant who made scores of racist and ableist remarks, who unfortunately managed to run this tribe by virtue of being the only one there with a brain. Let's run the brain tally on this tribe. Colton, full. Troyzan and Jonas, half. Everyone else? Colton had problems with Bill. I wonder why. Which Bill learns about after Leaf informs him that Colton is coming after him. Now, according to Colton, Bill found Colton's idol and threw it into the ocean, in direct violation of the rules. And Colton says that this is the origin of why he disliked Bill so much, and why he targeted him this round. So this is why, after a Monono win immunity, Colton pitches to the tribe that they actually give it up so that they can vote out Bill. But Tarzan wants Leaf gone because Leaf spilled the beans to Bill and betrayed their alliance, I guess. The good news is the decision to give up tribal immunity has to be unanimous, so any one of them can simply politely decline, and the other tribe will still have to go to tribal. Incredibly, both Leif and Bill agree with everyone else to go to Tribal. Literally after Tarzan points his finger at Leif and says, "We're voting for you." But as proof of the chokehold Colton had on this tribe, he gets his way and Bill is sent packing later that night. Genuinely the worst move of all time made by Bill and Leif. I could buy this as a risky move that failed on Leif and Bill's behalf if they thought Colton was going home, but Bill thinks it's Leif, and Leif thinks... well, I'm actually not sure what Leif thinks. That's also a strong word. Guesses? Ponders? Seriously, I cannot stress enough how bad of a move this was for the whole tribe, but especially these two. Bill and Leif had nothing to gain and everything to lose, and had Bill simply said no, he would have made the tribe swap the very next round, which potentially could have separated him from Colton and reset his flailing game. Who knows how far he might have gone? He might have even had a front row seat to see Colton leave on a stretcher. Dude, look at what you're missing out on. Finally, we've reached our last 2 players in Survivor to win immunity, but still go home that round. Sydney and Lydia in Survivor 41 and 42 respectively, who earned the merge, then had their merge promptly unearned, thanks to the Hourglass twist. Inarguably 2 of the most twist-screwed players of all time, Sydney and Lydia both won the Earn the Merge immunity challenge, meaning they were in the half of the tribe that was immune this round, but then had their win reversed when Erica and Roxroy, respectively, smashed the Hourglass, turning back time and making the challenge losers into winners, and putting them on the chopping block. For Sydney, the options on the table at Tribal that night were herself, Deshawn, Danny, and Nasir from Luvu, and Evie from Yasa. Ricard won individual immunity. Evie was a sitting duck as the only non-Luvu available to be voted for, but Luvu ultimately picked her as a split vote option in case of an Evie idol play, because Yasa and Sydney were taking a shot at Deshawn. This tribal council gives me a headache just thinking about it. In the end, Sydney left as a split vote sacrifice out of fear that someone would play an idol on Evie, but she probably would have stayed if she'd not taken her shot in the dark and just voted against Evie, which would have tied things up. Evie goes on the revote. Similarly, Lydia won immunity alongside Marianne, Jonathan, Lindsay, Hai, and Tori, but also had her immunity win reversed after Roxroy, the funniest possible person to go to exile and get this big moment, by the way, smashed the Hourglass. With all of the tribal outsiders immune following the immunity challenge, Jonathan is on the chopping block, but Omer manages to mist everyone, including Lydia's closest ally and ride or die Hai, into voting her out instead to keep his Taku numbers. Just another masterstroke from one of the greatest strategists of the new era. Yes, immaculately played, Hai. In both situations, the immune then not immune players had a chance to win individual immunity, but they were still pretty screwed in my opinion. As we've seen, typically when the immunity necklace comes off, it's voluntary, not voluntold. And while this particular twist is definitely never coming back, I don't think it's out of the question that some future players will join this elite group by giving up individual immunity, only to have their torch snuffed later. At the very least, someone someday will win Final Four immunity, put themselves into firemaking, and lose. Would have been pretty funny if it happened here. My advice to future players: if you win immunity, hand that necklace out like candy. I got bills to pay and I need the content. Got nothing else for ya. If you'd give individual immunity to me, like and subscribe and I'll get you more Survivor content just like this. Until next time, don't get idled out.